welcome to the Niche Podcast. This is a space that I created to explore businesses and the journey they take when catering to a niche market. So if you're feeling a little bit nichey today, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right. Thank you so much for showing up for your life and your business today. I'm so glad we're getting to hang out. Today, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship and marketing. What are the best ways to market your business through social media when there's so many platforms out there to choose from? Well, my guest today is a marketing genius. Yes, I'm going to say that because he actually opened his company when he was only 16 years old and has since grown it into a six-figure business. He is quickly scaling that and will soon hit that seven-figure mark. Alexander Dijkema is founder of YBO Marketing. He has been an entrepreneur since the age of 12 and has created a niche and successful business that competes with some of the major marketing firms around the globe. He is going to be sharing some of his tips, tricks, and how he decided to take the road less traveled to start his company. I am so excited to chat with you, Alex. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit with me and talk and chat a little bit about your business and your branding and your niche. And so let's get it going. Thanks for being here.
No problem. Love to be here. Good morning, actually. Oh, it's actually afternoon now, so I guess good afternoon.
I'm so excited. So let's start by just giving the listeners a little bit of your background as far as how did you get to be an entrepreneur and, what has been your journey up until now in your business?
Sure. So both my parents moved here in 1995, and I was born here in 98, 20 years old, and they're both first time, so in America here. So they're entrepreneurs, they work for themselves. And, growing up, I watched them kind of struggle, and they never really worked for anyone else. So I saw the highs and lows of entrepreneurship pretty early on in my life. I think if anyone who has family in there, who has family that are entrepreneurs themselves, they see it. So, from a young kid, I watched that whole thing go through. My mom is in advertising, so she does like freelance work for a couple of companies, and my dad he has his own composite engineering business down in Florida. From a child, I saw what they did, and at a young age, I was really into programming. You familiar with programming at all?
Yes, my dad was actually a programmer.
So I was really into that from, I think, 10 years old to like 15. My brother was 4 years older than me, and he was into it at an early stage, but he kind of veered off from it. And that's how I actually got into entrepreneurship, because I started programming a couple games when I was like 12. There were games that were online. So I started having this community, building a community, having those people join the server, play with us. And I would actually, from that point forward, I started charging people to play with us. And that was a huge thing.
And this was at 12?
I started programming, 10 was too, I was probably, 12 to 13. And this wasn't a programming game from scratch. We kind of got the basics already made.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of work to put it online. I mean, you had to buy servers, you had to do all that stuff. And I didn't have any money at the time. So, what I did was I got the first month or two going, just saved up a little bit. Didn't cost too much, maybe a couple $100, $100, $200. And we had a player base, I know, like 40 to 50 people per day. And to get perks, I charged them. And that kind of just built that community. And I just loved it, since then. And that lasted about 2 years. Probably made a couple $1,000s over those 2 years. Not much, maybe $3,000 or $4,000, but that's a lot of money when you're 15 or 14.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's so for me at the time that was crazy. And I was still hooked up to my mom's bank account, so she saw these payments coming in. She said, "What are you doing online?" And so she never liked me being online, but she said, "If you're making money, I guess you're doing something, positive,
She
so
had
go
the
ahead."
she figured you had the entrepreneur hustle in you.
Yeah, and at that time it's all simple. You don't have too much to worry about. So um,
It
it
was
was
just
nice.
for the love, for the fun of it.
Yeah, and I used to spend, oh my gosh, 14 to 16-hour days playing video games. But it was it's that's how I got started. A lot of people have that. I think everyone starts off with a hustle.
No, it's pretty incredible to that you got into, you learned how to program at, 10, 12 years old, and then quickly turned it into like an underground business.
It really, yeah,
I
it was,
mean,
yeah, it wasn't really
that's insane.
legal, but
Right.
because it was actually a game of another game. It was called RuneScape, but I'm not going to get into the
Yeah.
specifics. But we would basically charge the other kids playing to get perks, and yeah, and I love that. And it didn't last too long because high school, middle school, all that stuff
Right.
came along, but that's what got me interested. And since then I've kind of had that, I mean, that just eye or that energy to make my own money. So
Did you decide to go to college?
okay, so my brother went to college. He still is in university. I went for a year and I dropped out. I just didn't like the waiting. I think I might have ADHD. I don't know. I think lots of entrepreneurs do. That's why they
Right.
are entrepreneurs, because they've, I
It's like, oh,
couldn't
shiny
stand.
object to the right.
Exactly, right. Um, I worked at Quick Trip. Do you have Quick Trip in Florida, or do you know
No,
Quick Trip?
no, I don't know what
It's a
that is.
it's a gas station in this kind of in the southeast here,
Uh-huh.
and I'd always get in trouble, man. Everything I did wasn't right. I couldn't figure things out. I mean, I did a good job, but I just would get distracted too often.
Right.
So that was kind of not going to work out for me. And the same thing with school. I'd go. School was 2 minutes from my house, my parents' house. I drive there, I forget my laptop. I have to go back, get my laptop. I go back, and then I forgot my charger. I have to go back. And that's just how, unfortunately, I am.
Well, it's not unfortunate, right? I mean, I think it's who you are. I
Yeah.
was just gonna say, like, for anyone listening, and maybe you have these things and you're going through these moments, you're like, man, why is it that I just can't get it right? I mean, what about just accepting that, like, that's how you're wired?
Yeah, you have to accept it. And I think that the earliest time you realize that, you're a little bit different than other people, which isn't necessarily bad, the fast track, you're on a fast track to fixing those problems.
Right.
As long as you understand what's wrong, I'm not saying there's something wrong, but as long as you understand yourself, you're good to go, for the most
So
part.
you went to college. What was the track at that point when you decided to enroll in college? What did you, was it programming, or were you going for
Yeah, it
maybe
was
like,
computer programming,
okay.
but what kind of put me the wrong way was my first computer programming class was to learn how to use Excel spreadsheets. And that was, I already learned a lot from my childhood just teaching myself, and it just and then I had to do an anthropology class and language arts, and for me a trade school would have been much better.
Got it.
You get right into what you want to do and not all the other, expensive things. And at this time, it was a bad time. I think it was 2016 I went to college, so not that long ago. My mom had paid for my first semester, which was 2750, right? And I felt guilty because I didn't go to college the way I should have if someone else was paying. If you're paying for yourself, you can do whatever you want, but I didn't appreciate it as much, and I
Right.
felt bad. So
Right.
I said, I'm not gonna make my mom, of course not make her, but I'm not gonna let her spend another 2750, which is a lot of money for her, on something I'm not fully utilizing. So
You're not fully committed to it, and it wasn't
yeah,
something you were
exactly,
passionate about. I mean,
exactly.
it just shows the person that you are. And I mean, I'm in awe of Alex every time we chat, and I love having conversations with you all the time, and just picking your brain. And he's 20. Okay, so that
blows my mind, because if I had, I mean, dude, if you have ADHD, it's doing you, it's not hurting you at all. Because if I had just the self-awareness, that you have, I think at times when, just talking about business and just knowing
Yeah.
where you want to go and what you want to do at your age, boom. I mean, all I'm saying is,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
I'm saying, that is amazing. So you always had that entrepreneurship, like, desire, that bug, right? It started with just that hustle, just the fun of it.
Yeah, it was started out as just being really fun. Obviously, it's more fun when you don't have to worry about paying bills.
Right.
But it started out just being fun, and I always liked the idea that you're able to increase your income whenever you want. Right? If you work harder, you can just increase your income. It bugged me at an early age, even earlier, that if I work at a 9 to 5, I'm capped, or I'm capped until someone else decides I can increase my income. But if I decide this week I want to put in an extra 10 to 15 hours, I can probably increase my income a couple $100, right?
I love
And
that.
and that's
That's pretty good. Just to have that thought of, like, you know what, this is part
you
of it.
know think about that. I mean, really, if you're at a 9 to 5, I mean, and some people are okay with that. The security is such a big thing that people care about. But and I understand that. But if you're able to increase your own income just by putting in more hours, that's amazing. Um,
And I think, and you're right, you said this, I think in the beginning, like, entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and it isn't. It's not for the faint of heart. It really isn't, because you do have the ups and downs. You do have, you go through the seasons. That paycheck is not coming every 2 weeks.
mhm.
And there are months, I know in my business, there are months that I will put an insane amount of effort, and I'm like, wait, why did I not make the same that I did last month? You know what I mean? Like, why
Yeah,
did it
yeah,
not increase? Why did it
yeah.
decrease? And then you have to go back, and then you have to rewire the thing, and you have to fix it. And then you have to have a better, so that you can have a better month than next.
And of course, every industry is a little different. Like mine's a little, real estate's a much different thing where you can put in more hours and you might not see results.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I've learned in the last 2 years of really pushing my entrepreneurship journey was that the more hours you do put in, the better results you're going to have. And it might seem simple and like obvious, but a lot of people don't really understand what that statement. Like, if you put in more hours, you will have a better result at the end of the day. And like it's such a you can tell that to someone, but you won't believe it until you actually start doing it.
Doing it yourself. And I think I think in real estate it is true, and I think it is true to most professions, because if you do, I always tell this to people that are trying to get into real estate, so listen, the more you put into it, the more you will get out. I just think that a lot of times throughout your path in business, you might be putting in time and effort into the wrong, to the
Yeah.
wrong thing, and
Oh,
that's
for
when
sure.
you don't see fruits. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, the more you put in, you'll get out in entrepreneurship. But I think that's
Yeah.
the only way to grow your business, is just by just hustling and giving it everything that you have. And then, so you, at that point, so you decided, all right, I'm going to quit college and I'm going to pursue what at that point? Like, did you have
Yeah.
a plan, or did you just sit on the couch
Um,
and?
so right before I quit, I have a longtime friend called Drew Reiner. Um, he's my business partner, actually. Um, he already dropped out a couple months before that. Maybe we weren't friends for a couple of years because we had some problems, but we solved everything and we started hanging out again. And we said, you know what? Let's start this company. At first, it was just a regular social media company, like you see. There's thousands of them. It's called Fortune Unfolding. I was 16 at the time, right? And that did not work out. That we maybe got 2 clients, made probably $4,000 in 6 months. That didn't work out. So I left the company. I said, I'm going to do it on my own. And then that's when I created YBO Marketing, or Your Business Online. And that's what I have today.
I love
Yeah.
Alex's story, because he's 20, but he's put in insane amount of hours towards finding what his niche is, finding what his passion is, creating his business. The fact that you are 20 is pretty incredible to me. But no matter what your age is, if you are in a business and you have a business and, you know, perhaps just like Alex mentioned, he had this one business with his partner and it was not yielding the return that he wanted. And then he decided, you know what, this is not working for me and I'm going to go do something else. There's always that fear, I think, in us of I'm not going to do it, or it's too scary, or what if, right? And I think that if it's not giving you the return that you need, then yeah, move forward. No matter what your fears are, just move forward because it can't get any worse than what it is now. Right?
Well, and that's what I want to talk about too, is that it's usually not the first time it's going to work out, right? You know, if you have this brilliant idea, most businesses, I would say, don't work out the first time. You know, I mean, you've heard that before. It's going to take a couple tries, you know, and maybe you got to tweak it. You have this amazing idea. You start it and you do it for a couple months. You say, okay, I'm not getting anywhere. What's going on? It doesn't mean the idea is bad, but maybe the execution. Maybe you just got to change the route you're taking, really develop a whole new business plan. And I think a lot of people, and the biggest hardship is if you don't have millions of dollars of investment, you can't create a brand new idea that's going to go out there and be successful, right? It's just too hard. For most of us out here that don't have millions of dollars to develop this new product, don't reinvent the wheel, just change it a little bit. There's a lot of companies just like us, right? But you know what I said? I'm going to create a company with the best customer service there is. That's what we are. Maybe if you have an idea out there for anyone listening, try to find someone successful that's doing good in kind of the area you want to be in, and think about how can you tweak that to make it just a little bit better, and you have a business right there. But if you see someone else doing something similar to what you want to do, use that, copy them, change it up a little bit to your own niche, to your own unique business.
And you talk about being a believer in tracking income, sales. Can you break that down in your business? What do you mean when you say, all right, I believe in tracking income, sales, and business models?
Sure. My business exponentially grew after I started tracking my income. And what I talk about when I say that, tracking income, beforehand, you know, I'd have a few clients, and yeah, I generally knew how much money was coming in at the time. But it was only until every month I built this sales sheet, right? I said, all right, my income is $3,000 a month right now, right? And just example. Mm-hmm. This month I'm going to increase. My goal is $4,000, right? And what I would basically do is through the month, I'd track each sale, how much I net profit from it, and add it, see if I hit my goal. And that basically helped me exponentially go from making $2,000 a month to making $12,000 a month, right? Within just a couple months, maybe 6 to 8 months. And
by tracking what was
exactly. And it might seem simple, you know, and it is simple, but a lot of people, they're kind of scared to see how much money they're making. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense.
You know, they're kind of saying, oh, I don't want to look at my bank account, or I don't want to look how much sales I made this month because it's embarrassing, or I'm nervous, and at the time I didn't like looking either. I didn't like knowing. I think because it was kind of
just avoid it.
Let me avoid it. Exactly. And ever since I actually said, okay, this month I failed. Why? Or this month I went increasingly, you know, went over my goal. And it's just something about doing that. You just know, and it's one of those things that I recommend to everyone. Know how much money that's coming in every month.
And you've created YBO. It's extremely successful at this point, but you do have a niche within the marketing space. So tell me a little bit about that.
And our niche is specifically Instagram. We do a little bit of other stuff, but that's what we decided. We said we're going to focus on Instagram, and we're going to have a great service, and our customer support is going to be amazing.
Let's talk about marketing. Why Instagram and not all the other platforms?
Why Instagram? That's a good one. So when we started the company, we said, okay, that was one of the things why we were different. Instead of pitching people saying we were just a regular social media company, we said, hey, we specialize in Instagram, which is an eye opener. That's our niche, right? But that wasn't the only reason. Instagram was a newer platform than Facebook, and they have Twitter, of course, and all the other stuff. But Instagram was on the rise at the time, and it still is. But people are very visual, and it was an amazing product that we have in Instagram and social media platform, because each Instagram page, especially business profiles, are like a digital business card. And when I say that, is that on each Instagram business page, you can find someone's name, a little bit about what they do, most of the time their phone number, email, and directions to get to their business. And you can see the content they post. You can see the type of business, the products they sell, what they do in their daily lives. So it's actually even more than just a business card. You can get an inside look of people's lives and their businesses with having the information to contact them. So it's an amazing thing.
Do you still find that for someone that hasn't started marketing through Instagram, and either just wants to start marketing through Instagram for their own business, or want to actually start a business through Instagram, do you think there's still space for that?
Yeah, I would. If you're going to be on social media at all, you have to be on Instagram. Posting on Instagram, you can get tons of more engagement and real people to your page than Facebook, and you'll be seen much easier.
What are some tips that you give to your clients to increase their presence or their brand? Is there a certain look that you have to have in order to attract your audience?
It always changes from, every industry. I think the personal brand, if you're going to have a business on there, personal brand is the best way to go, but obviously for some bigger companies, you can't have that personal brand. And when I say personal brand, I mean kind of people get to know you more than the business. But if you just have a business profile, you want to include that human emotion in there, right? Posting, I have, a few boutiques I work with, and they just post their products, and there's no engagement with their followers, and no one really gets a feeling for who they are. So it's just another page posting products. That's not really someone they can connect with and feel on an emotional level. And a big thing in sales is getting that emotion out there. So if you're going to be on Instagram, you have to add that human touch. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth your time unless you're running ads to your page. And the captions too, right? You can't have these boring captions. Maybe ask an engaging question that gets people to comment, right?
Do you think that stories are more important than the actual feed? Are they just as important, or is it just like the icing on top of the cake? Like, what do you think of, when someone like...
They definitely are the icing on top of the cake, right? I always have a story going consistently. Most of it's 99% of the time you come to my page, you won't see me without a story. And the reason is that there's a process. When you get people organically to your Instagram page, right, the first things they're going to look at is your bio and your story. So your bio has to be straight to the point of what you do, right? And it's got to kind of make what's unique about you. How many clients do you work with? Who do you work with? What's different about you than everyone else in your industry? I like to keep those short and simple. And then they're going to look at your story. And the reason they're going to look at your story after that is because that's the most recent thing that you've done as a person, right? Stories last 24 hours. So they don't want to miss anything, and they want to see what's new. So having a story shows that you're active and you're online, and maybe it's something for them to engage with.
How many posts should someone have if they're actually trying to be more, if they're really
Sure.
trying to engage and take their page to the next level?
Well, I like to say post 3 to 4 times a week. I think the content you post and your actual feed should only be high quality stuff as well. Because they're going to look at that after your story, right? And they're going to say what type of person is this? And the whole goal is for someone to know who you are before they even talk to you. And that is the biggest thing I stress to our clients is think about this to yourself. When someone comes to your page you don't know, how well can they get to know you before even saying hello or hi to you? And to get back to your question, I would, a couple hundred posts are fine. I only have around, I think, 30 myself because I just use my story all day long. But as far as posting, 3 to 4 times a week.
3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah. I mean, you can post once a day for sure.
Okay.
That's completely fine. Some people like to
You mean
post five
post too
times a
much?
day. No.
Right, you don't want to bug people too, because I was
Yeah.
posting a bunch like a while back, I think last year when I first, because I started my Instagram effort like last year around this time, and like started really getting intentional with it and figuring it out. And I remember I was posting like a crazy person, and I was just like trying to beat my own numbers. Like, oh, today I posted like 20. Like,
I think it's good to let things sit. Like a nice
yeah,
cake that you bake and you bring out. You
yeah,
just let it sit for a little while. And I think it's the
right.
same thing with posts, right?
And
You
then
want
I
to
realized, fool, stop posting so much.
you want to let things settle, and that's what I do with my posts is I let the engagement build up on them. So if you let those posts settle and they have a few hundred likes, it's going to look better than posting 3 times a day and each post has 50 likes or 40 likes, right? Some people, and it's not a bad strategy, is you let it sit till a certain number. You say, okay, I'm only going to post once I've hit 200 likes on this picture, right? And then you're going to post again, and that's your minimum amount until you can post again. And
Oh,
I,
that's a neat little strategy. Is
yeah,
that a thing? Okay,
yeah,
I
oh,
like
for
that.
sure, that's a
I like
thing.
that. Like
You know,
if you've never hit, you know, 200 on a post, like don't go for
yeah.
that. And
So,
how about boosting a post? Like I hear different things on both sides of the spectrum. Explain what boosting your post is, and do you
so,
think it's a good
yeah.
investment?
Boosting posts is basically allowing a user to promote a post to their like a local audience. You can choose a minimum amount of, I think, even $1 just to boost. You see a lot of people they put $5 on a post just to get 1,000 likes, right? I think it depends what your end goal is. If you're just trying to get likes and views, it is a good way to increase the engagement. But if you're trying to sell products or a service, it is not going to work for you. And I can say that pretty confidently. You're going to be wasting your money if you're trying to make sales out of boosting your post.
All right, so stories is a great way to get more visibility on Instagram. Posting really just depends on you. According to Alex, up to what you said, like 3 posts a week is a
Three to
pretty
four
healthy.
posts.
3 to 4 posts a week is a pretty healthy page, and also that creating a brand through Instagram in this day and age is extremely important. We talked about just so much, and I hope everyone listening has just written things down or just put all this like amazing information back in their nugget so that they can utilize it later. If you're an entrepreneur, I hope this interview has encouraged you to just keep moving forward no matter where you are and no matter what part of your journey you're in. And if you are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, I also hope that this will give you that little nudge to move forward and kind of walk away from any fear that you might have. Because if Alex could do this starting at age 16, I think we can all do it.
Just do it. Just do it. Pull the trigger. Everything's about pulling triggers.
Just getting it
Seriously.
done. And thank you so much, Alex. I'm so excited to just have this time to chat with you about the stuff that you and I actually love.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be linking all of Alex's social media pages down below in the show box, but you can reach him on Instagram at YBOAlex. And of course, if you're looking for someone to take your business to the next level and you need some assistance in the marketing space, please hit him up because he has done some amazing things with my business. As always, you know how in this, get out there, do amazing things in your life, in your business, and stay niche.